The Grand Hall of the Celestial Dragon Empire was the largest room ever built by any species in the galaxy. It stretched for almost a mile from one end to the other. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed inside on humid days. Giant pillars made of black stone held up the roof. Each pillar had carvings of planets that the Empire had conquered over 3,000 years. Today, the hall was full of aliens from every corner of the known universe. There were tall blue creatures with 4 arms. There were small furry beings that floated in the air. There were insect-like queens surrounded by their worker drones. There were blob-shaped entities that communicated through color changes. Every powerful species had sent their leaders to watch this moment. They had all come to see the coronation of the next Dragon Emperor. Kevin Parks stood at the entrance of the hall. He was 23 years old. He was tall and handsome with black hair and sharp eyes. His armor was made of a special metal that glowed with trapped starlight. A long red cape hung from his shoulders. On his head sat a small crown that would soon be replaced by the great dragon crown. Kevin was half human. His mother had been a human diplomat from Earth. His father was the current Dragon Emperor, ruler of 10,000 worlds. This made Kevin special. He was the first person with human blood to ever stand this close to the Dragon Throne. 400 alien dignitaries watched him with great interest. Some were afraid of what a half-human emperor might do. Others were curious. A few were hopeful that Kevin would bring change to the strict and harsh empire. The Grand Chancellor, an old alien with gray scales and tired eyes, raised his staff. The sound echoed through the massive hall like thunder. "The heir approaches," the Chancellor announced. His voice was carried by hidden speakers to every corner of the room. "Let all who witness kneel before the future Dragon Emperor." Every alien in the room lowered themselves. Some knelt on legs. Some folded their tentacles. Some simply sank closer to the ground. Only the current emperor remained standing on his platform near the throne. Kevin took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast, but not because of the throne. Not because of the power he was about to receive. Not because billions of beings across the galaxy were watching this moment on their screens. His heart was beating because of what he saw in the far corner of the hall. There, almost hidden behind a massive pillar, an old man in gray work clothes was quietly mopping the floor. He moved slowly and carefully, like he had done this job 1,000 times before. His hair was white. His back was slightly bent. His face was wrinkled from age and hard work. Nobody was looking at him. Why would they? He was just a janitor. Just a cleaner. Just a nobody in a room full of the most powerful beings in existence. But Kevin was looking at him. Kevin had been looking for him for 5 years. The young prince took one step forward on the red carpet. Then another step. The crowd watched with respect. The emperor nodded with approval. Everything was going according to plan. Then Kevin started walking faster. The chancellor frowned. This was not part of the ceremony. The heir was supposed to walk slowly and with dignity. He was supposed to stop at 7 different points to receive blessings from religious leaders. He was supposed to bow to his father before climbing the steps to the throne. Kevin was not doing any of these things. Kevin was running. The crowd gasped. The emperor's eyes went wide with shock. The chancellor dropped his staff. The alien dignitaries looked at each other in confusion. The young prince ran right past the throne. He ran past his father. He ran past the ancient dragon crown sitting on its pillow of silk. He ran past all the power and glory that was supposed to be his. He ran toward the old janitor in the corner. The old man looked up from his mop. His eyes, still sharp despite his age, went wide with recognition. He opened his mouth to say something, but before he could speak, Kevin crashed into him with a hug. "Uncle Tommy," Kevin whispered. Tears were falling from his eyes. His voice was shaking with emotion. "I finally found you." The entire hall had gone completely silent. 400 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy were staring at a prince hugging a janitor. Nobody understood what was happening. Nobody knew what to do. The old man slowly raised his arms and hugged Kevin back. "Hey, kid," Tommy said softly. His voice was rough but warm. "You got tall. You disappeared," Kevin said. He was still crying. 17 years ago, you just disappeared. I looked everywhere. I sent search parties to 100 planets. I hacked into classified databases. Nobody could find you. Tommy let out a small laugh. Nobody thought to check the janitor closet. Behind them, the Emperor was walking toward them. His face was a mask of controlled anger. The ceremony was ruined. His son had embarrassed him in front of the entire galaxy. Someone was going to pay for this. "Kevin," the Emperor said coldly, "what is the meaning of this?" Kevin turned to face his father, but did not let go of Tommy's arm. "Father, this is the man who saved my life when I was a baby. This is the man who taught me everything I know about being a good person. This is the man I have been searching for since I was old enough to understand what he meant to me." The Emperor looked at the old janitor with new eyes. There was something familiar about the man. Something about the way he stood. Something about the look in his eyes. Like a soldier who had seen too many battles. "Who are you, old man?" the Emperor demanded. Tommy straightened his back. For a moment, he did not look like a janitor anymore. He looked like something else entirely. Something dangerous. "My name is Thomas Wilson," he said calmly. "But you might remember me by another name." The Emperor's face went pale. "The Madman of Mars," he whispered. Tommy smiled a tired smile. "I prefer just Tommy, Your Imperial Majesty. But yes, that's me." The Grand Hall erupted into chaos. 23 years before the coronation, humanity was fighting for its survival. The Dragon Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered every species they met. Some they made into slaves. Some they made into soldiers. Some they simply destroyed. No one had ever beaten them in war. No one had ever even come close. Then they found Earth. The humans were primitive by galactic standards. They had only recently learned to travel between planets in their own solar system. They had no faster-than-light ships. They had no energy shields. They had no plasma weapons. By all logic, they should have been conquered in a single day. But humans were strange creatures. When the Dragon Empire sent its first invasion fleet to Earth, they expected an easy victory. Instead, they found a species that refused to surrender. A species that would rather die than kneel. A species that fought with a kind of desperate creativity that the Empire had never seen. The war lasted 6 years, and at the center of that war was a young commander named Thomas Wilson. Tommy had been a simple mechanic before the invasion. He fixed ships at a small station near Mars. He had no military training. He had no combat experience. He was just a regular guy who happened to be very good at solving problems. When the alien ships appeared in the sky, Tommy did not run. He gathered a group of survivors, stole a damaged military ship, and started fighting back. At first, nobody took him seriously. The real military commanders called him crazy. They said his tactics were too wild, too unpredictable, too stupid to work, but they worked. Tommy did things that no alien commander could predict. He hid his ships inside asteroid fields. He used the gravity of planets to slingshot his attacks from unexpected angles. He sent fake messages to confuse enemy communications. He once won a battle by making the aliens think his ship was already destroyed, then attacking from behind while they celebrated. The aliens could not understand him. Their tactical computers were designed to analyze logical patterns. Tommy had no logical patterns. He just did whatever crazy idea popped into his head. People started calling him the Madman of Mars. Tommy hated the name, but he could not deny that it scared the enemy. After a while, Dragon Empire ships would retreat as soon as they detected his fleet. They were terrified of what insane trick he might try next. By the end of the war, Tommy had become the most famous human in the galaxy. He had killed over 30,000 enemy soldiers. He had destroyed hundreds of ships. He had held the line at Sol System when everyone else had given up hope. When the Emperor finally agreed to sign a peace treaty, it was Tommy who shook his hand. The image was broadcast to every planet in the known universe. A tired human mechanic in a torn uniform, standing as an equal to the ruler of 10,000 worlds. Humanity was saved. They were given their freedom and a place among the galactic powers. Tommy was called a hero. They wanted to make statues of him. They wanted to give him medals and titles and land. Tommy wanted none of it. The morning after the treaty was signed, he disappeared. Search parties looked for him for years. Earth governments spent billions trying to find their greatest hero. The Dragon Empire sent spies to every human colony, worried that Tommy was planning some kind of revenge attack. Conspiracy theories spread across the galaxy. Some said he was dead. Some said he was hiding on a secret planet. Some said he had been kidnapped by another alien species. The truth was much simpler. Tommy had walked into the Dragon Empire's palace, applied for a job as a janitor, and started mopping floors. Nobody recognized him. Why would they? The famous Madman of Mars was supposed to be a giant warrior with fire in his eyes. This was just a quiet old man who cleaned toilets and fixed broken lights. The background check systems were looking for weapons and spy equipment. They were not looking for mops and cleaning supplies. For 23 years, Tommy lived in a small room in the workers' section of the palace. He woke up early every morning. He cleaned the halls. He fixed things that were broken. He ate simple meals. He went to bed tired but satisfied. He was happy. For the first time in his life, Tommy was not fighting anything. He was not a symbol or a weapon or a legend. He was just a man doing honest work. The kind of work where you could see the results at the end of each day. Clean floors. Working machines. Small problems solved. Of course, there was one other reason he stayed. 6 years after he started working at the palace, Tommy heard crying coming from the medical wing. He followed the sound and found a human woman in terrible pain. She was giving birth, but something was wrong. The alien doctors did not understand human biology. Their machines were not designed for human babies. The baby was dying. Tommy walked into the room without permission. He looked at the monitors showing the baby's failing vital signs. He looked at the confused alien doctors. He looked at the crying mother. "Warm the baby up," Tommy said calmly. "Keep him hydrated. Skin-to-skin contact with the mother. And turn off that machine. It is making things worse." The doctor stared at him like he was insane. "I've fixed a lot of broken things in my life," Tommy said. "Trust me. This will work." They listened. The baby survived. The mother's name was Rachel Park. She was a diplomat married to a very powerful person. She thanked Tommy with tears in her eyes and asked how she could ever repay him. Tommy just smiled and went back to mopping, but he kept watching the baby. He watched him grow into a toddler, then a child, then a teenager. Whenever the boy came to the palace, Tommy made sure to be nearby, just in case. Just to make sure his repairs were holding up. The boy's name was Kevin, and he was going to be emperor. Kevin did not remember the first time he met Uncle Tommy. He was too young, but his mother told him the story many times. "You were dying," she would say, her eyes getting wet with the memory. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. The machines were not working. Everyone had given up hope. And then this old janitor walked in like he owned the place and told everyone what to do. Kevin grew up knowing that he owed his life to a cleaning man. when Kevin was 3 years old. He escaped from his handlers during a visit to the palace. His bodyguards searched everywhere for him. They checked every room, every closet, every hiding spot. They were panicking. If something happened to the Emperor's son, heads would roll. They found Kevin in a supply closet on the 3rd floor. Sitting on a bucket and eating candy. Next to him was an old janitor with white hair and kind eyes. He was lost, Tommy said simply. I gave him something to eat while we waited for you. The bodyguards grabbed Kevin and rushed him away. Nobody thanked the janitor. Nobody even asked his name. He was just a worker, after all. Not important, but Kevin remembered. The next time Kevin visited the palace, he escaped again. And again, he found his way to the old janitor. This time, Tommy had 2 pieces of candy ready. You knew I would come back, Kevin said. You seem like a stubborn kid, Tommy replied. I respect that. It became their secret tradition. Every time Kevin came to the palace, he would find a way to escape his guards. He would run through the halls until he found Tommy. Sometimes, Tommy was mopping floors. Sometimes he was fixing pipes. Sometimes he was just sitting in his closet, reading old books on a small tablet. Kevin would sit with him and listen to stories. Tommy never talked about himself. He never mentioned the war or Earth or anything from his past. Instead, he told stories about other things. Stories about how machines worked. Stories about how to solve problems when everything seemed impossible. Stories about faraway places and strange creatures and adventures from old books. But the stories Kevin loved most were about Earth. Tell me about the blue planet again. Kevin would ask Dot, and Tommy would smile and describe a world covered in water and green trees. A world where the sky changed colors at sunset. A world where people lived in cities of glass and steel, but also in small wooden houses by the sea. A world that was messy and confusing and beautiful. Humans are strange creatures, Tommy would say. We are weak compared to most species. We die easily. We get sick. We break. But we never give up. When something knocks us down, we get back up. When someone tells us something is impossible, we do it anyway. That is what makes us special. Kevin listened to every word. As the years passed, Tommy became more than just a friend. He became a teacher. When Kevin was 10, he struggled with his strategy lessons. His tutors taught him the classic military tactics used by the Dragon Empire. Attack with overwhelming force. Crush your enemies completely. Show no mercy. Kevin did not like these lessons. They felt wrong somehow. He asked Tommy about it. The Empire's tactics work, Tommy said carefully. They have conquered 10,000 worlds. You cannot argue with results, but... Tommy was quiet for a long moment. But there are other ways to win, he finally said. Sometimes the best victory is one where nobody has to die. Sometimes strength means knowing when not to fight. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is show mercy to your enemy. Kevin thought about this for a long time. When Kevin was 14, his human mother got sick. The illness was something that alien medicine could not cure. It was a human disease, and the alien doctors did not understand it. Kevin was devastated. He cried for days. His father, the Emperor, told him to be strong, to hide his emotions. Showing weakness was not acceptable for someone who would one day rule the galaxy. Kevin ran to Tommy's closet and cried there instead. Tommy did not tell him to stop crying. He did not tell him to be strong. He just sat with Kevin and let him feel his pain. Missing someone is not weakness, Tommy said quietly. It is love. And love is the strongest thing in the universe. Stronger than any weapon. Stronger than any empire. Kevin's mother died 3 months later. At the funeral, Kevin stood straight and showed no emotion, just like his father wanted. But that night, he snuck away to Tommy's closet and fell apart completely. Tommy held him until the tears stopped. When Kevin was 17, he started asking questions about the janitor's past. "You know a lot about war strategy," Kevin said one day. "You know a lot about human history. You speak like an educated man, not a cleaner. Who are you really?" Tommy looked at him for a long time. "I am exactly who I appear to be," he said. "An old man who mops floors. I do not believe you." Tommy smiled sadly. Good. A future emperor should question everything. When Kevin was 18, Tommy disappeared. One day he was there. The next day, his room was empty. His mop was gone. His books were gone. He was gone. Kevin searched everywhere. He sent guards. He checked camera footage. He used every resource available to him. Nothing. It was like Tommy had never existed at all. Kevin spent the next 5 years searching for the old janitor who had saved his life, taught him everything important, and helped him become the man he was. He searched across hundreds of planets. He hired investigators. He offered rewards. He never stopped looking. And then, on the day of his coronation, he finally found him, standing in the corner of the grand hall, mopping the floor, like he had never left at all. The grand hall was in complete chaos. Alien dignitaries were shouting in dozens of different languages. Guards were running in every direction, not sure what to do. The insect queen was clicking so fast that her translator could not keep up. The floating creatures had risen to the ceiling in panic. In the middle of it all stood the Dragon Emperor, his face twisted with rage. Emperor William Park was not a man who got surprised. He had ruled for 40 years. He had crushed rebellions, destroyed enemy fleets, and executed traitors without blinking. He was the most powerful being in the known universe. But right now, he was staring at a janitor, and his hands were shaking. "Thomas Wilson," the Emperor said slowly. "The madman of Mars. The man who killed 30,000 of my soldiers. The man who humiliated my fleet for 6 years. You have been living in my palace, cleaning my floors." Tommy stood calmly, his mop still in his hand. "That is correct, Your Imperial Majesty. For 23 years. Also correct." The Emperor's eye twitched. "Do you have any idea what I could do to you? The punishments I could order? I could have you tortured for 1,000 years. I could destroy your entire species as revenge. I could..." "With respect to Your Imperial Majesty," Tommy interrupted, "you could have done all those things 23 years ago. You signed a peace treaty instead." The Emperor went quiet. Kevin stepped forward. "Father, please listen. Uncle Tommy is not a threat. He is not here as a spy or an assassin. He has just been living here, doing honest work." "Honest work?" The Emperor laughed bitterly. "He destroyed my invasion fleet. He made fools of my best commanders. He turned my great conquest into a 6-year embarrassment that the galaxy still laughs about." "I was defending my home," Tommy said simply. "Your fleet came to kill 8 billion innocent people. I did what I had to do. You enjoyed it." Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "I did not enjoy it. Every kill haunted me. Every destroyed ship meant families who would never see their loved ones again. I kept a list of every soldier I killed. After the war, I wrote a letter to each of their families. I told them that their sons and daughters died bravely. I apologized for taking them away." The Emperor blinked. "You wrote letters? To my soldiers' families?" 3,200 letters. It took me 5 years to write them all. I sent them anonymously. I did not want credit. I just wanted them to know that someone remembered." The hall had gone quiet again. Even the panicking aliens had stopped to listen. "That is why I came here," Tommy continued. "Not for revenge. Not for spying. I came because I was tired. Your Imperial Majesty." Tired of being a symbol. Tired of people looking at me and seeing the madman of Mars instead of just Tommy. Tired of carrying the weight of all those deaths. He gestured at his gray coveralls. Here, I was nobody. Just an old man with a mop. I could wake up, do my job, and go to sleep knowing that I had made something a little bit cleaner. A little bit better. It was peaceful. It was honest. It was the first time in my life I felt like I could breathe. The Emperor was still angry, but something in his eyes had changed. There was confusion there now. And maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of understanding. You could have gone anywhere in the galaxy, the Emperor said. Why here? Why my palace? Tommy glanced at Kevin, then back at the Emperor. Because 17 years ago, a human baby was dying in your medical wing. I walked in and helped save him. After that, I could not leave. I needed to make sure he was okay. I needed to watch him grow up. Kevin felt tears forming in his eyes again. I watched him from a distance at first, Tommy said. But then he found me. This stubborn little kid who kept escaping his guards just to sit in the closet with an old janitor. He asked me questions. He wanted to learn. And I started to care about him. Tommy's voice cracked slightly. I never had children of my own. Never had time. The war took everything from me. But Kevin, he felt like family. The only family I had left. Why did you disappear 5 years ago? Kevin demanded. I searched everywhere for you. Tommy sighed heavily. Because you were getting close to the throne. People were starting to notice that the future emperor spent too much time with a janitor. If anyone discovered who I really was, it would destroy you. They would say you were corrupted by a human war criminal. They would use it to take away your right to rule. He looked at Kevin with sad eyes. I left to protect you, kid. Staying away was the hardest thing I ever did. Harder than any battle I ever fought. Kevin grabbed the old man and hugged him again. I do not care about the throne, Kevin said fiercely. I do not care what people think. You are the only real family I have left. The Emperor watched this moment with a strange expression on his face. His son, his proud, strong son who was raised to be a ruthless ruler, was crying while hugging a human janitor. And somehow, it did not look weak, it looked like strength. The Emperor thought about his own father, a cold and distant man who had taught him that emotions were weakness. He thought about his dead wife Rachel, the human diplomat who had shown him that love was possible even for monsters. He thought about all the years he had spent building walls around his heart, and for the first time in decades, the Dragon Emperor did not know what to do. Guards, he finally said, take the prisoner to the holding cells. We will decide his fate tomorrow. Kevin's head snapped up. Father, no. This is not a discussion. The Emperor's voice was cold again. The ceremony is ruined. We will restart tomorrow, and we will deal with this situation properly. Guards moved forward to grab Tommy. The old janitor did not resist. He simply smiled at Kevin. It is okay, kid, Tommy said softly. Everything will be okay. I have survived worse. As they dragged him away, Tommy called out one last thing. Remember what I taught you, Kevin. Real strength is not about power. It is about knowing who you are and staying true to it, no matter what. The doors closed behind him. Kevin stood alone in the middle of the ruined coronation hall, surrounded by chaos and confusion. But his eyes were not sad anymore. They were determined. Kevin did not sleep that night. He sat in his chambers, thinking about everything that had happened. He thought about Uncle Tommy sitting alone in a cold cell somewhere below the palace. He thought about his father's anger. He thought about the shocked faces of all those alien dignitaries. Most importantly, he thought about what kind of emperor he wanted to be. The Dragon Empire had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. They conquered worlds because they could. They crushed anyone who stood against them. They taught that mercy was weakness and kindness was foolishness. Kevin had been raised to believe these things. His tutors had filled his head with stories of glorious conquest and righteous violence. His father had shown him how to command armies and destroy enemies. But Tommy had taught him something different. Tommy had taught him that the strongest warriors were the ones who knew when not to fight. That true power came from lifting others up, not pushing them down. That a leader's job was to serve their people, not the other way around. As the sun rose over the palace, Kevin made his decision. He walked to his father's private chambers and demanded an audience. The emperor looked tired. He had not slept either. "Father," Kevin said formally, "I wish to discuss the prisoner's fate." "There is nothing to discuss. Thomas Wilson is a war criminal. He killed thousands of our soldiers. The law demands his execution. The law also says that the emperor's word is final. You can pardon anyone for any reason." The emperor's eyes narrowed. "You want me to pardon the madman of Mars? The man who nearly destroyed our invasion force? Do you know how weak that would make us look?" Kevin stood his ground. "Father, the galaxy is already talking about what happened yesterday. They saw me run past the throne to hug a janitor. They saw me cry in front of 400 dignitaries. By your standards, I have already shown weakness." "Yes, you have. But here is what I think." Kevin stepped closer to his father. "I think the galaxy also saw something else. They saw a future emperor who cares about people, who values loyalty over power, who was not afraid to show emotion." The emperor said nothing. "The Dragon Empire has ruled through fear for 3,000 years, Kevin continued. "And yes, it has worked. But fear only takes you so far. Eventually, the conquered worlds will rebel. The enslaved species will fight back. You can crush them, but more will rise. It never ends. That is the way of things. It does not have to be." Kevin's voice was steady and calm. "What if we tried something different? What if we ruled through respect instead of fear? What if we showed the galaxy that the Dragon Empire can be merciful?" The emperor laughed bitterly. "Mercy is weakness. I learned that from my father, who learned it from his father. It has been the way for 3,000 years. And how many of those years were truly peaceful?" Kevin asked. "How many emperors died in their beds instead of being assassinated? How many worlds actually loved the empire instead of just fearing it?" The emperor went quiet. "Tommy taught me that real strength is not about how many people you can kill," Kevin said softly. "It is about how many people you can inspire. It is about building something that lasts because people believe in it, not because they are afraid of it." "And you learned this from a janitor?" "I learned this from the greatest warrior humanity ever produced. A man who could have become a king but chose to mop floors instead. A man who wrote letters to the families of every soldier he killed. A man who saved my life when I was a baby and asked for nothing in return." Kevin looked into his father's eyes. "I learned this from a man who taught me that even emperors should be humble." The emperor stared at his son for a long time. Memories flashed through his mind. His cold, distant father. His warm, loving wife. The child he had tried to raise as a ruthless ruler. The man standing before him now, something changed in the emperor's eyes. "You really love this old man," he said quietly. "He is the closest thing I have to family since mother died." The words hit the emperor like a punch. He suddenly realized how distant he had been from his own son. How many years he had spent being an emperor instead of a father. "The coronation will proceed tomorrow," the emperor finally said. "Thomas Wilson will be released." Kevin's face lit up. "Father, thank you, but..." The emperor held up his hand. "You will deal with him. You will decide what to do with the most famous war criminal in human history. It will be your first act as Emperor, and the galaxy will be watching." Kevin nodded slowly. "I understand." The next day, the Grand Hall was filled again. This time, there were even more spectators. News of the coronation disaster had spread across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Kevin walked down the red carpet. This time, he did not run. He moved with calm dignity, stopping at each blessing point, showing respect to each religious leader. When he reached the throne, he bowed to his father. The dragon crown was placed on his head. "Long live the Dragon Emperor," the Chancellor announced. The crowd repeated the words, but there was nervousness in their voices. What would this half-human emperor do first? Kevin turned to face the assembly. His voice rang out clear and strong. "Bring in the prisoner." Guards escorted Tommy into the hall. The old man was still wearing his gray coveralls, but his hands were bound. He walked with his head held high, showing no fear. Kevin descended from the throne and walked toward him. "Thomas Wilson," Kevin announced loudly. "The madman of Mars, war hero to humanity, war criminal to the Empire. You have been living in this palace under a false identity for 23 years. Tommy said nothing. His eyes were fixed on Kevin. "By the laws of the Dragon Empire, you should be executed for your crimes against our soldiers and our honor." The crowd murmured. The alien dignitaries leaned forward. Kevin smiled. "But I am not here to follow old laws. I am here to make new ones." He turned to address the entire assembly. "Thomas Wilson saved my life when I was a baby. He taught me what it means to be a good leader. He showed me that strength without mercy is just cruelty. He proved that the mightiest warrior can also be the humblest servant." Kevin gestured to a servant, who brought forward a small box. "Therefore, as my first act as Dragon Emperor, I hereby pardon Thomas Wilson of all crimes against the Empire. Furthermore, I appoint him as Imperial Advisor to the Dragon Throne." Gasps echoed through the hall. "His official duty," Kevin continued, "will be to remind me every single day that power means nothing without humility, that conquest means nothing without compassion, that an empire built on fear will eventually crumble, that an empire built on respect will last forever." He opened the box and pulled out a small golden badge shaped like a dragon holding a mop. "Will you accept this position, Tommy?" The old man looked at the badge, then at Kevin, then at the stunned crowd of aliens watching them. He laughed. "Can I still mop floors?" "You can do whatever you want." Tommy took the badge and pinned it to his gray coveralls. "Then I accept. Someone has to keep this place clean." The crowd did not know how to react. Some were confused. Some were angry. But slowly, starting with the human representatives in the back, applause began to spread through the hall. The Valtharian ambassador turned to his aide. A young human woman named Emma. "Is this how humans always behave?" he asked. "Promoting janitors to royal positions?" Emma smiled proudly. "Pretty much, sir. We are chaos wrapped in sincerity. Most species never see us coming." As the applause grew louder, Tommy leaned close to Kevin. "You know this changes everything, right? The other alien powers will think the Empire has gone soft. There will be challenges." Kevin nodded. "I know, but we will face them together. You are taking a big risk. You taught me that the biggest risks often lead to the greatest rewards." Tommy smiled and patted Kevin on the shoulder. "You turned out pretty good. Kid, I had a good teacher." The new Dragon Emperor and his janitor advisor stood together in the Grand Hall, facing a galaxy that did not know what to expect from them. But that was okay. Humans had a way of exceeding expectations, and Tommy had one more floor to mop.